And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage. And you're joining us on the podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Cara Macklin from the other side of the pond, the other side of the world. I don't know if you're in lockdown yet, but that's something we're all potentially looking forward to once again.
Yes.
Cara is fascinating. She's a multi-award winning businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and a success coach. She's done a TEDx. She's started a bunch of businesses. She's been in family business. She's now doing coaching. I'd rather talk to her directly than talk about her. So let's just dive in here. Welcome aboard today, Cara. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Peter.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about your journey, because it's an interesting one in terms of family business, then leaving and then starting businesses, and now sort of the chapter of thought leadership. So give us a quick overview, if you would.
Sure. So when people ask me this question, I always say my journey started at 5 years old around a kitchen table in my family business. So I grew up in in healthcare and hospitality. I went to London for a while where I worked in Marks and Spencer's, which is a really high-end food retailer in the UK, and worked in their food trends.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very much around innovation,
Mm-hmm.
creative thinking. I came back to the family business and was there for 15 years. And like most family businesses, I did most jobs. So my first role was 24
Right.
and I was managing a
Right.
team of 120. And I stayed there for 15 years, as I say. And during that time, we scaled. So it's healthcare and hospitality business. We scaled the business from 200 employees and 3 sites to nearly 700 employees and 7 sites. And I opened 4 of those
Mm-hmm.
businesses. And I then got a scholarship in 2015 to do my MBA back in London. So I headed back to London and got international experience there with a hotel group and
Mm-hmm.
China and different places, and then came back to Northern Ireland in 2016. I really wanted to disrupt the elderly care market, and I created the first ever lifestyle care home in Ireland, which I launched in 2018 with a team and it was very successful with an amazing team around me.
So
And
it wasn't that you were looking for things to do to fill your days, because they sound like they were incredibly busy. But
yes,
what inspired you to sort of go down this path of thought leadership and the TEDx and coaching? Because you could have stayed, nose to the grindstone and driving the revolution in elder care. But
mhm.
what drove you to sort of dive into this piece?
So I trained professionally as a coach at the same time as I was disrupting the elderly care market because I didn't have enough to do. And
Right.
during that time, I trained as a coach because I knew it was the best way to lead a team. When you learn the principles of coaching, it shows you how to get the best out of people, which I've always been really interested in. And then in 2019, I realized if I could work with more entrepreneurs, my clients are big thinking entrepreneurs, people who are growing their
Hmm.
business and want to have a real impact in the world. So because of the success I've had in terms of, disrupting the care market, I knew after that there was a lot that I could teach other people. I made a lot of mistakes along that journey.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because I've seen and had clients and friends and colleagues a similar situation where they've had incredible success in business. So I forgot what the numbers were, but you went from like 200 employees to 700,
Mhm.
and then you go into coaching, which is really part of the reason many folks do that, is to really understand this whole people thing better. So how much of what you learned in coaching were you able to sort of go back forensically and say, aha, I've actually been doing a lot of things right. I didn't know there was a word for it. And then maybe there was another bucket you're going, oh, geez, this is why I always had these type of problems, because I didn't realize you got to intrinsically motivate people or whatever. How much of it fell into those two categories?
I suppose the first category, I mean, I was 24 managing a team of 120 staff, of which majority were a lot older than me. So
Sure.
at the early age, I had to figure out how to get the best out of people. It's a huge interest of mine anyway. But I think what the coaching brought, it just took it to a very different level of professionalism, understanding what you were doing. So I was
Hmm.
doing a lot of things probably right, but I didn't understand. So I couldn't necessarily replicate them because I knew what I was doing. And then, yes, like any leader, I certainly at a young age and still do, I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. But the people bit and how to intrinsically motivate people has always been, because healthcare is people, hospitality is people.
Sure.
Um, I've always, had a real passion for that as well.
Excellent. Excellent. So it's interesting what you said in terms of that you did get a lot of things right, which obviously, but that it wasn't replicatable, which
Mm,
comes to, or wasn't easily replicatable. but the power of systems and processes and models in business is pretty obvious, but people tend to not really think the same way when it comes to management, leadership, and people, right? So if we knew, finance without systems would be total anarchy and chaos. Operations without systems would be horrible. But why do we, often default to intuition or something, or not depend on the systems for the people piece?
I think it's much harder to put the people piece into systems, but I agree with you. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm doing what I'm doing now, because I didn't actually realize it was systems and things I was doing until I, looked outside the business, worked outside the business, and people would have said to me, like, that's not natural. Not everyone's doing what you're doing. So I thought if I could put it into a system or a model, as you said, and teach and help other entrepreneurs, then they will accelerate their success quicker. But people are much harder to put into systems than numbers, for
Right.
example. That's
Yeah, well, and it's not systems in an absolute uniform way like a P&L would be, but it's knowing which tools to use in which circumstances. So I want to pivot for a moment. So now you're in the sort of coaching and people development space, and one of the things I find interesting there is there are a lot of amazingly talented people drawn to that for lots and lots of reasons, right? There are very few subset of those people that are coaches that are successful that had a previous career and actually driving business. So it's really interesting because entrepreneurs, I would say, appreciate the abstract or the theoretical, but there's always this sense of, yeah, but you don't know what it's like to not cover payroll and that, all the, grow the market and drive the business and get people to deal with the vision piece. How powerful is it for you when working with clients that you've got the true empathy of saying, when I was in a similar situation, ...
Sure. I mean, you're right. There's a lot of amazing coaches who weren't entrepreneurs before, but my experience of who I work with is they work with me because I have both. So I bring the mentoring piece in terms of business and advice in terms of how they can do things differently. My niche, I think I've said to you before, is very much creative thinking and how do you look at it differently, and that whole piece around innovation and disrupting the entrepreneur themselves in terms of their thinking, and then the business, because I just think that's what every business needs, and it certainly needs it right now. And then I bring the coaching piece in as well in terms of my training and how to help them think differently and their mindset. So that power together is what has accelerated my success, and that's why I bring the two. So any of the entrepreneurs who work with me, one of the key things is that I have had my own businesses and scale businesses, and I know exactly what it is like, so I can give them advice firsthand, not just from a book.
So no, thank you. That's fantastic. If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So I want to talk about sort of the next piece. So oftentimes in professional services that are fairly personal, intimate, et cetera, like coaching, you're getting into people's stuff, right? Two things. There's a self-selection process. I've got to find the right person. And for you as a business owner, you've got to find the right people you want to deal with. You might say, I don't want to deal with whiners. I don't want to, whatever. So it's that self-selection piece. Let's start there. How does that work for you in terms of finding your sweet spot, in terms of I want to work with more people that have these issues and I don't want to work with these type of people? Have you sort of gone through that a bit?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's the hardest part actually when you become a coach, because you can help a lot of people. But my sweet spot and niche is exactly the type of people who want to do what I have done, which is they're very ambitious, they're big thinkers, they have been in business probably minimum 5 years, and they're at a point now where they want to scale the business, or they want to do something very different, either disrupt an industry or take their business in a different level. And that's because that's what I've done throughout my career, so I understand firsthand exactly the type of people who would not be drawn to me are very traditional businesses, people who want to keep doing the same thing, very systemized, processed. That would not, or someone, I mean, every business has challenges, but my expertise would not be going in to sort out a major, failing business, or, there's coaches and mentors who are expert in that. That would
Right, you're not doing the turnaround side, but you also bring the family business piece, which is a whole different level of let's say,
Yes,
psychology.
yeah,
It's
definitely is.
putting the fun in dysfunction in family businesses, but there's a
Yes.
level of, I think, that people don't really understand the depths of what goes on in family businesses. And not that family businesses are bad. It's
Hmm.
just really, really different. I mean, I don't think most people can imagine sitting around a
No.
board table and everyone
Hmm.
around them is related by blood and you're in competition and some people are doing a great job and some people not, and agendas, and add office politics to Thanksgiving dinner table and voila, that's another day of work, right?
Yes, I mean, I don't have a corporate background, so the politics that goes with corporates is not my
Yep.
thing. But yes, family businesses I know inside out and back to front. And the dynamics of how the family part plays out in the business and vice versa. There's a lot of dynamics that goes on in a family business, and I don't, my experience is there's great experts outside family businesses,
Sure.
but they never quite understand because they've never been in it. They never quite understand the
Yep.
dynamics in a
Yeah.
family business.
So let me ask you this then. So on the one hand, if you put your CEO business hat on, you've grown businesses, you've built whole new fields basically, and it's about scale and growth. Now, one of the things that's always, I think, sort of ironic, if you will, about the coaching business is it's a god awful business model, totally unscalable. So why do you go this way? In terms of, if you were just looking objectively, say the next business I get into has to have these criteria, scale probably would have been one, but for some reason it wasn't. So what was the driver underneath that?
Well, I mean, scale actually is in terms of my business model. I have two
Okay.
models. One is I work on a one-to-one with very, very high level clients who want to
Hmm.
pay me to have access to me
Sure.
one-on-one. The other model I use is it's called CMAC. Obviously, my name's Cara Macklin, so it's Change Makers Acceleration Circle. So that's where I bring together the best minds across different industries of these type of entrepreneurs. So what you find is a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders stay in the same industry. They all think
Yep.
the same, they do the same. Whereas my success has come in my business. One of the key things is I've completely got out of my industry in terms of I always went to look for great leaders in other industries to learn from because that's one of the key elements of my system in terms of the creative thinking
Sure.
that I teach people. Unless you're mixing with different people and different thinkers, you will keep thinking the same. So I bring together like healthcare, hospitality, finance, technology,
So is that
food.
like more of a mastermind model? So you've got different,
Yes,
okay.
yeah,
So you've
yeah.
got no scale, but high ticket is you one-on-one,
Mhm.
moderate scale, moderate ticket is this mastermind piece. And what's the third?
The next part then is I'm working on updating the model of what I teach people. So I'm selling that just as an online program.
Got it.
So
Which
that's
is lower ticket, higher scale.
yes,
So
yes.
I love that because a lot of what we do in the work with our clients is explore each of those paths, right? So
Mhm.
one is, hey, if people want you and you've got your reputation and the access, you got to create a level of the velvet rope and scarcity and limit and price accordingly. And I think it's
Mhm.
having the courage to price somewhere between accordingly and obscenely to
Yes.
make a point that no, I don't, I'm not the whatever hourly consultant, or if it is hourly, it's going to have a lot of zeros.
Mhm.
And then moving from there in terms of different levels of scale at different price points. It's hard, right? It's usually fairly easy to fill your own book of business if you want to.
Mhm.
The scale part's hard. How have you found, or what challenges have you found as you move from this sort of one-to-one coaching to the more scalable elements of the business?
I think one of the hardest things, as you and I talked about the first time I met you,
Yeah.
was entrepreneurs don't like systems and processes and don't like sitting down putting methodologies together. I'm exactly like that. I'm very creative and innovative and drive on to the next thing. So just sitting down and putting my knowledge into a system is hard. Once I do that, then the key thing for me is getting the right level of people in the group together. I mean, there's clients who contact me to work with me, and honestly, I say to them, I'm not the best person to work with them. I would never work with someone who I didn't feel I was the best coach for them. And that's exactly the same as the groups that I put together. It's very, very important for me, the quality of people and the right fit. So that's probably the hardest bit. And then, like any business, I mean, you have to sell it.
Yep.
Try and find the right. But that's just
So what are the things that you look for? Because that's really an interesting piece. So if I come to you and say, "Oh, I've heard wonderful things about you. We have a mutual
Mhm.
friend, and let's go," and you're making a determination of me. It's almost a dating thing to go,
Yeah.
"Yeah, he's really eager, and I could clearly close him as a client, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not a good fit. What are the, you've got your sort of spidey senses. How do you determine if someone would be a good fit for you? Because you don't want to buy yourself a headache in 90 days, right?
No, and it's not even that. Yes, it's a headache for me, but I genuinely would not take money off someone if it was not going to be a good fit for them. I understand how hard it is as an entrepreneur to make money and profit. So, it's not good business for me to work with someone who is not going to succeed for them or me. The key things for me is, one, they've already been in business and had a level of success. They've got a team. They're a big thinker and they're ambitious. So they're certainly in this side of the pond, they're thinking internationally in terms of their business, or they're already international. In America, maybe not so much because you've got a huge market there. And they want to do things differently. They don't want to follow the crowd. Words like disruption, innovation. So that's the business side of it. And then the people side of it, in terms of the person themselves, it's the values piece, the integrity, the humility,
Right.
The connection. Then it needs to be more than just making money for them. You can when you talk to people, you can just sense their passion for the business, their employees, their customers. That's a huge part for me as well.
Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic. I appreciate you sharing with us your journey and your story. And I wish you the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I've got one just video I can share with your
Sure.
listeners to help them. So I put it on my website. It's just cairn.org.uk /leveraging thought leadership. And there's a free video that they can download in terms of helping them and their business and get some advice.
Excellent. We'll put that in the show notes as well. So thank you.
Brilliant.
Thanks for sharing some time with us today, Cara. Appreciate it. Thanks.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.